Hi, my name is Megan Sheehy and I'm the referees advisor at KBI. I'm here to talk to you about a couple of rule changes that we're going to implement in the domestic competition at Knox. Each year FIBA bring out some rule changes, and this year we're implementing 5 of those rules into our domestic competition. So I'm going to break these rules down for you and explain them now. These 5 rules are going to come into place as of Saturday the 28th of November and will be implemented across all of our domestic competitions. The first rule change is in regards to a player who is injured and requires assistance. So the rule change is to clarify what assistance means and who can provide an injured player with assistance. So people such as a coach, assistant coach, team manager or team member who comes off the bench to assist an injured player. If that happens, a player must be substituted unless the team is reduced to fewer than 5 players. The second part of this rule is in regards to the time that a player takes to recover from their injury. So they have approximately 15 seconds, and if they have not recovered from their injury, they must be substituted again unless the team has been reduced to fewer than 5 players. In the past, you used to be able to call a timeout, and if a player recovered, they were able to take the court again. This is no longer the case. The next rule I'm going to talk you through is contact to a player in the act of shooting. Now, rule change is to differentiate the difference between a continuous movement and a normal shot. So for something like a jump shot, for example. So the new wording is to just clarify the difference between the two and when the act of shooting starts and ends. So the first one I'm going to talk you through is an act of shooting on a shot. So this begins when a player starts in the judgment of the referees to move the ball upwards towards the opponent's basket and ends when the ball has left the player's hands, or if an entirely new act of shooting is made, and in the case of an airborne shooter, both feet have returned to the floor. So this applies to things like on a rip through. If a player rips the ball through, the contact occurs on the rip through and then proceeds to move the ball towards the basket. If the contact occurs on the rip through, it's not a shooting foul. The other example is when an outside shooter draws the contact. So they fake a shot, the player jumps into them and causes contact. They then, once contact has occurred, move the ball towards the basket. Again, that is not a shooting foul. And I've got some videos that are going to explain that in a little bit more detail. The second part of this rule is in regards to the act of shooting in a continuous movement on a drive or other moving shots. So this begins when the ball has come to rest in a player's hands upon completion of a dribble or a catch in the air, and the player starts in the judgment of the referees the shooting motion preceding the release of the ball for a field goal, and it ends when the ball has left a player's hands, or in the case of an airborne shooter, both feet have returned to the floor. This applies to things as well if a player passes the ball off after they've begun the act of shooting. The act of shooting ends if they pass the ball. So I've got a couple of clips that are going to explain that in a little bit more detail. The next rule changes in regards to the cylinder principle for offense and defense. Now, at the moment, the rule only stated that there was defensive player cylinder and there was nothing in the rule book regarding an offensive player cylinder. So this rule change is just to clarify and implement the same principles that apply for a defensive player cylinder to now also apply to the offensive player as well. Now, an offensive player with the ball must be allowed enough space for a normal basketball play within his cylinder. However, they may not move outside of their cylinder to cause illegal contact. The next rule changes in regards to double fouls. As the rule currently stated, the two foul types needed to be of the same penalty. So, for example, in domestic competition at Knox, if there was one team on 9 team fouls and one team on 7, so one of the teams would be in bonus. This couldn't be a double foul if 2 fouls occurred at the same time on opposing players, as the penalties aren't the same. So this basically led to a lot of confusion and it making it really difficult for referees to distinguish the order in which the fouls happened. So the rule change now just states that both fouls need to be player fouls. They both involve physical contact. Both fouls are between the same two opponents fouling each other. And the last one is that both fouls just need to be the same foul type. So either 2 personal fouls or an unsportsmanlike and a disqualifying foul, where it's the same foul type. The last rule changes in regards to unsportsmanlike fouls, and in particular criteria for unsportsmanlike, where contact occurs from laterally or behind and there are no other defenders in between the opponent and their basket. So the change for this rule is now in regards to the team control. A team no longer needs to be in control of the ball for it to be an unsportsmanlike foul. The team just needs to be progressing towards the basket. So for an example of this is when there is the ball is intercepted and tapped forward towards the basket and the player is gathering the ball or trying to attempt to grab it, but they are progressing towards the basket and the contact is behind or laterally. This is now classified as an unsportsmanlike foul. And I've got a clip of this to further clarify and show you what I mean in regards to this. If you have any questions about the rules that I've covered today, please feel free to ask myself or any of the referee supervisors around the stadium, and we'll be more than happy to answer your questions.